The massive predator loomed over the clearing, its thick, scaly hide shimmering under the harsh twin suns of the alien world. It was a beast of nightmare, six-legged, fanged, and bristling with a predatory menace that made the local fauna scatter in fear. Its breath came in deep, rumbling huffs, eyes glowing with primal hunger. It towered over everything around it, as if nature itself had designed the perfect hunter. Standing before it, a lone human adjusted his helmet, calmly scanning the towering creature. His figure was dwarfed by the beast, yet there was no fear in his gazilly cold, calculating focus. He was a survivor of Earth's harshest environments, a veteran of countless alien expeditions, and his expression was as steady as stone. To the side, Lyra watched in disbelief. Her people friendly with the dominant race on this planet, but even they wouldn't dare challenge the apex predator. The very sight of it sent waves of terror through her, and the fact that the human stood his ground left her speechless. How could this small, fragile being face down such a monstrosity? The beast growled, low and guttural, its razor-sharp claws digging into the dirt as it prepared to charge. Lyra instinctively took a step back, her heart racing. She had expected the human to retreat, or at least show some semblance of hesitation, but he did neither. The human stepped forward instead. With a deliberate calmness, he unclipped a strange device from his belt. It wasn't a weapon she recognized, not one of the plasma rifles or energy blades her people used. It was simple, crude, even an old projectile-based weapon, the kind humans used when they first ventured into the stars. Yet the way he handled it, with a quiet efficiency, made it clear that this was no relic in his hands. It was a tool and extension of his lethal intent. The beast narrowed and charged, its massive form barreling toward the human with bone-rattling speed. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. She had seen this monster rip through entire hunting parties, its jaws capable of crushing armor in a single bite. The human didn't stand a chance. But then, something changed. As the beast closed the distance, the human's posture shifted ever so slightly, his eyes narrowing. In that moment, something primal flickered behind his gaze. It wasn't fear, it was something older, something darker. The beast, for all its savagery, seemed to recognize it too. It hesitated, mid-charge, as if sensing that the human wasn't prey after all. It was another predator. The creature skidded to a halt, confused and wary, its growl turning uncertain. The human didn't move, his eyes locked with the beast's, and for a heartbeat, there was an unspoken understanding between them. The beast knew death when it saw it, and in the human's cold, unflinching gaze, it saw something that mirrored its own natural killer. The moment stretched, and the air grew thick with tension. Lyra felt her breath catch in her throat. She had never seen anything like this. How could a creature like the human, small, fragile, stand so fearlessly before the apex predator of the world? How could he make it hesitate? Then, with deliberate precision, the human raised the weapon. One shot. The sound was sharp, loud, and final. The beast let out a roar of pain, but it was already too late. The projectile had found its mark. The massive creature staggered, its legs buckling beneath it, and with a final, earth-shaking crash, it collapsed to the ground. Silence followed. Lyra could only stare, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. The human walked over to the fallen beast, his expression as calm as before, as if killing a creature of legend was just another day for him. He holstered his weapon and turned toward her, his gaze softening, though the predatory gleam hadn't fully disappeared. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice steady and calm. Lyra blinked, trying to find her voice. You killed it," she whispered, her throat dry. "No one has ever, not even our warriors," she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. The human shrugged, glancing at the beast's corpse as if it were nothing special. It was just a matter of understanding its nature. He said, "All predators are the same. They recognize when they're no longer the ones hunting." Lyra could hardly believe it. For all their advanced technology, all their superior intellect, her people had never been able to defeat this monster. And yet, this human, this fragile, mortal being had done it with nothing more than a gun and a stare. She had heard stories of humans, stories of their resilience, their adaptability, their strange capacity for violence when pushed. but she had never understood, not truly, until now. As she looked into his eyes, the cold, calculating look still lingering beneath the surface, she realized something profound. Humans weren't prey, they were predators, just like the beast, perhaps even worse. And that realization left her speechless. Lyra stood frowning, her mind still reeling from the sight of the massive beast lying dead at a human's feet. The jungle around them, once filled with the constant hum of life, was eerily silent, as if the entire world had paused to witness what had just occurred. The human bent down, running his hand along the beast's coarse hide. His movements were slow, methodical, as if studying the creature he had just slain. He didn't gloat, didn't show any sign of pride or satisfaction. It was a test, nothing more. Lyra swallowed, finally finding her voice. How did you do that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. It's not just about shooting it. You made it stop. It hesitated. The human glanced up at her, his eyes still carrying that cold, predatory gleam. Predators sense each other, he said simply, as if that explained everything. It's an instinct. When you meet something that's on your level or higher, you know. Lyra shook her head, struggling to comprehend. Her people were not weak. They were proud, powerful warriors who had tamed much of their world. Yet they had never tamed this beast. It ruled the wilds, unchallenged, until today. But you're not like it, she said, looking him up and down. You're not. Not what? He asked, standing to his full height. Not a beast, not strong enough. You're right, I'm not like it. But that doesn't mean I can't be just as dangerous. Lyra's gaze flickered to the weapon on his hip. The gun was simple, primitive by her people's standards, yet it had been enough to bring down a monster. But it wasn't just the weapon, she realized. It was in his eyes, his stance, his absolute lack of fear. You think it's about strength, the human continued, walking toward her. That's where you're wrong. It's about will. That thing, he said, gesturing to the beast's body, wasn't just a hunter. It was a survivor, like me. But when it looked into my eyes, it saw something it hadn't seen before. It was stronger than its own. That's why it hesitated. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. Willpower. That was what made the beast fodder. Her people had always believed that technology, strength, and numbers were the key to survival. Yet this human was telling her something entirely different, something that went beyond anything she had been taught. You were willing to die, she said slowly, realizing the truth. You weren't afraid. The human nodded. Fear is natural, but you can't let it control you. When you're out here, you have to decide whether you're the predator or the prey. Once you make that choice, you commit to it. And if you're the predator, you never back down. Lyra's eyes widened as the weight of his words sank in. He had walked into that clearing, fully aware that he could die, but he had refused to be prey, even in the face of a creature far stronger than him. He had chosen to be the one hunting. Her mind raced with questions. Was this what made humans so dangerous? Their adaptability was legendary, but this was something deeper, more primal. It was a kind of ruthless determination, a refusal to be dominated, no matter the odds. She looked at him with new understanding, a mix of awe and caution in her gaze. You're not like any species I've ever known, she admitted. You humans, there's something different about you. The human smiled, but it wasn't a warm or comforting smile. It was the kind of smile a predator gives when it's caught sight of its prey. You're not the first to say that. Before Lyra could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The sound of distant roars echoed through the jungle, growing closer. Her heart leapt into her throat. The beast they had just killed wasn't the only one. There were more, and they had been drawn by the scent of blood. The human's expression didn't change. He calmly looked toward the tree line, assessing the situation. Looks like we've got company, he said, his voice as steady as ever. Panic surged through Lyra. We need to leave, she urged, backing away. If more of them come, we won't stand a chance, not even you, can. He held up a hand, silencing her. Relax, he said, his eyes scanning the surroundings. We're not running. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. What? Are you insane? There's no way we can. You don't run from predators, the human interrupted, his voice hard. You face them. If you run, you show fear. And that's when you become prey? Lyra's mind raced, every instinct in her screamed to flee, to find safety. But as she looked into the human's eyes, that same cold, unyielding stare, she hesitated. There was no fear in him, only determination, and somehow, despite the danger, she found herself wanting to trust him. The roars grew louder, and the ground shook again. The other beasts were coming, faster now. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she stood her ground, her breathing shallow. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay calm. The human smiled that dangerous smile again. "We fight." With a swift motion, he drew his weapon and checked the ammunition, then looked back at her. "Stay close to me, and don't hesitate. We're predators, remember." Lyra clenched her fists, her heart pounding in her chest. The jungle trembled with the approach of the monsters, their roars filling the air with primal fury. But as she stood next to the human, she felt something she hadn't expected to resolve. She wasn't a predator, not like him, but maybe, just maybe, she could learn. As the first of the beasts burst from the trail line, the human raised his weapon, his eyes gleaming with that predatory fire, and for the first time in her life, Lyra didn't run. She stood her ground, just like him,